Hi, Laura Holyoke here. I have some feedback for you on your first application papers. This mostly is general feedback for everybody, the most common mistakes that I found and some corrections in doing those. First of all, right now what I'm going to do is just put your grades in. I have comments for everybody that I want to go back and input, but I wanted you to get this general information. I've spent a lot of time the last few days just reading over the papers and grading them. So then I'll come back probably tomorrow morning, sometime tomorrow, even later this evening, and put in your comments. However, I want you to contact me if you received a score of a B or lower, or if you want specific feedback on your paper. Let's talk or use Zoom. I have, for everybody's paper, I have written stuff on them. I've made notations. Yeah, so I'm happy to talk to any and all of you for that feedback. So one of the things that I first saw is what am I thinking? Mistakes in your reference lists. And I usually say go right back to the syllabus because I have everything listed there correct. Well, now I can say everything is correctly listed in the syllabus. It wasn't before. One of those being that Shine's two books are from different publishers. So I want to walk you through the reference, how our text ought to be referenced in your reference list. So both of our texts, Catmull and Shine, have an author listed with them. So this is with Peter Shine. However, Peter Shine is not an author. And somebody named Wallace, Amy Wallace, is listed along with Catmull. She is not an author. So we just have Shine and Catmull as our authors. The year, period. So the title of the text starts with an uppercase letter and only one uppercase or capital letter after a colon. So organizational, culture, and leadership, only the word organizational is capitalized. And then whether you're using the 4th or 5th edition, doesn't matter. However, the TH is not it's not superscript, but it's just regular TH, and then it's ED period, and then that's in case. So always using text, you list the city and the state where the publisher is located, and then just a shortened publisher name. So you wouldn't say Wiley and Sons, Josie Bass Publications, you would just say Josie Bass. Also, make sure that you're doing hanging indents, meaning that the first line goes all the way out to your margin, and then the second line and other lines are indented 5 spaces. If you don't know how to do that, let me know and I'll walk you through that. Okay, in-text citations. I wanted to just give you some correct and incorrect examples of what they look like. First of all, when you start with an author, you always put the year of their publication right after that. So it would be Shine 2017, argued that culture can be analyzed in 3 different levels. Another note about in-text citations is when you are citing an author, it's always past tense. This is true of APA 6th edition. So you wouldn't say Shine argues. You would say Shine argued. Another area that I found, I listed these correct and then incorrect. So I'm going to go down to the incorrect one on Catmull. So Catmull states how foundational to the Pixar belief that unhindered communication was key no matter what your position. So in here, you need to state the 2014 right after you list the author, and then you state, then you put in parentheses the page, and it's always P period. If it's more than one page that you take your quote, then it would be P period, and then 5-6, so the page numbers included. Also take a look at the punctuation. When you use a quote, So I didn't end this. I didn't end this right. So under the correct one, the period comes at the very end. However, if you are ending a sentence with a quotation and other punctuation marks should be included in the quotation marks. So if you have a comma to move on, that is within the quotation marks. I may have to give you more examples later. Finally, so APA 6th edition says that you list the page number even if you don't use direct quotations, but it's certainly okay not to use the page number if not. However, when you do use direct quotations, right after the quotation, if you haven't cited the author before, you list the author, comma, the date of the publication, and then the page number. Or if you've simply paraphrased something, then just the author and date. So I get confused. A lot of you are listing page numbers, yet I'm not quite sure whether those are direct quotations that you are using or not. Another comment about in-text long quotations is if you have a block of words that you're quoting that's 40 words or longer, that should come in a block quote, so it should be indented, the entire paragraph, 5 spaces over from the right. Here's what I found missing in most of your papers is the why and how this is an artifact or an espoused value and belief or a basic underlying assumption. So you did great giving examples, describing those examples, what they look like if it was workspaces. What you didn't do was argue, that this is why this is an artifact, or this is why this is a basic underlying assumption. So many of you cited Catmull a whole lot in using your examples. However, you needed to bring it back to Shine, and why would Shine call that an artifact or an espoused belief? So here's an example. Shine contended uncovering true meanings can only take place through experiencing the culture of the organization at the deeper level of assumptions. Prominent displays elaborate personal office space decor that are fun and fanciful that attribute to the pride of employees' work and an encouragement of self-expression, which are the unseen meanings of behind these artifacts. That's a little bit, but this gives support to why the workspaces are artifacts. Professional writing tone is another area I wanted to talk about. So please don't use passive voice. Passive voice sounds like there are or there was. Here's an example of passive voice. A survey was administered using a convenient sample. Teachers were invited. Participation. Teachers were provided by the principal of the school. The teachers were emailed. Responses were collected. All passive. So you want to write in more of an active voice as much as you can. In this study, I administered. We still kept the 68 teachers were invited. The principal of the school provided me with the email. I emailed the teachers an information sheet. A total of 45 teachers responded. So you can see how that's much more active and comes to life. Avoid second person and informal tone when you're writing. So you don't want to write you, about you, and we in scholarly papers. So an incorrect example is fire safety is important for everyone to learn. You have to evaluate if you would be prepared to face an emergency, blah, 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 blah. Correct way is to say fire safety is important for everyone to learn. A resident must evaluate if he or she would be prepared. So we've taken out the we's and the you's. And even though Shine often uses we and you, it's technically not a correct way to write in scholarly tone. So I have a couple examples that I saw used. Next, we will do this, or now, let's do this. Okay, another thing that I saw quite often is not only, well, first of all, using the words, this paper will do something, or as if Pixar were a real person. So to change this paper will do something versus in this paper I will. And then also I found lots of unneeded words in many of the papers. So an example of, here's the original. This paper will attempt to classify a small sampling of these into Shine's 3 levels of culture. I changed that. So in this paper, I deleted the words will attempt to, I classify a small sampling, or two the same words. So I classify a sampling of cultural elements, I say what instead of these, from Pixar into Shine's 3 levels of culture. So I state exactly what I want to state. A second example, so I have 3 lines here before the original, the edited, and then how it can be kind of very precise in words. So in this paper, I will be illustrating how Edgar H. Shine's 3 levels of culture, citation from his book, Organizational Culture and Leadership, are reflected in the culture established at Pixar to gain a better understanding of the success. So this looks to me like it is the purpose of this paper will be to. So in this paper, I deleted the words will be. I illustrate how Shine's 2017 3 levels of culture, delete, because all these are unneeded words, are reflected in the culture established at Pixar. Ends up this. In this paper, I illustrate how Shine's 3 levels of culture are reflected in the culture established at Pixar. That is the purpose of this paper. So just to show you how you can take out unneeded words. So overall, I found that when people used headings and were formulaic about how they wrote their paper, the better that you did. So if you, in your headings, if you gave a definition and example, general example of artifacts, and then you went in and showed artifacts and described them at Pixar, and then you argued and gave support as to why they were artifacts, that worked really well for people. So using headings really helps you do that, to avoid slang words, avoid cliches, avoid second person, and also avoid abbreviations and shortcuts. So you write out cannot versus can't, or did not versus didn't. You write out they are versus there. So it just gives a more formal writing tone. Yeah, thank you so much for your time and listening.